Okay, we are recording. This is the Kubernetes SIG Network meeting from Thursday, April 5th, 2018. We've got, at the moment, 2 items on the agenda. The first pushed out from last week. Francois, would you like to talk about the core DNS KEP?
Hello, yes. So this topic was already in the list last meeting, but we had no time to go over. However, several people made some comment on this KEP. I will share my screen maybe, so we can see it. Okay, so this KEP is about having core DNS defined as default DNS service for Kubernetes starting GA. And GA for core DNS, so right now core DNS is beta in version 1.10. The question is, when will it be GA? And the whole point of this KEP is define the graduation criteria. I don't know if I will not make the summary. So core DNS is a DNS service, and it was already said that it would be replace kubedns at one point. The goals here for this KEP for GA is so define it as a default DNS server. Right now in beta, you can set up Kubernetes with core DNS, but you have to give some parameters on the tool you use to deploy Kubernetes. We would like, the goal is to have it as default, to have the core DNS image hosted somewhere around gsr.io. As of today, it is still on the core DNS project. And we would provide, as it's already defined for beta, a way to upgrade from kubedns to core DNS through the kubeadmin kubeadm tool. And the same way, a way to upgrade from core DNS to core DNS. What is not in the goal is to go back to translate back from kubedns. So you can still install kubedns, but we will not take the config map of core DNS and translate into a kubedns config map. And what is not in the goal, so that means what will not happen is if you have a tuning of kubedns that is not defined in your config map of kubedns, that means it is something really on the command line of the internal component of core DNS, that will not be translated. Okay, so the proposal today, we have already core DNS installed through kubeadmin, kubeup, minikube, kops. It is on its way. It's not already committed. It's committed. It's not already merged. Use case. The thing is, it's just a replacement. So there's no really change for end user going from kubedns to core DNS, except that the performance tests we run so far show that for the DNS query point of view, you have better performance. I don't know if, but that's one thing. You can extend after, you can take advantage of some configuration of core DNS, but that would be, after manual configuration if you need special use case of core DNS. So globally, right now with the conversation we had in this PR, the graduation criteria, and that is, I would like that everyone agree on that, or we need to retune, is passing all end-to-end conformance test of Kubernetes, which makes sense, with core DNS as a DNS, is having core DNS part of the end-to-end Kubernetes scale test. That means make them run and verify we are still not hit the performance of Kubernetes. And extend the existing, so there is a set of performance tests for DNS that are right now exist, but only for kubedns, so they will be extended for core DNS. And there is somewhere else, someone that is taking care right now to have this perf test be run into any end-to-end test, so we can monitor the degradation or the good performance of this component, not only the DNS but all the perf tests. So I don't know, any comments? So now what I wait is an approval on this one. We can go ahead and maybe talk a little of the process as we how do we manage to pass this graduation criteria? As do we check in core DNS as default, and you will have an application for every one using core DNS, using Kubernetes from the master branch, and before the code freeze, we verify the graduation criteria, or we have to verify the graduation criteria before we can merge a default for core DNS. Yes.
I think, yes, I think those are good questions. My guess is that we would need to do this early in a cycle,
Yes.
enable it, and make sure that we can get sufficient test runs throughout that cycle with that configuration that we're confident. I mean, it's interesting because part of it is just designation, so it's getting enough runs that we're confident to designate it as GA, and then the other part is switching some flags in sort of installer projects, which can be done sort of independently of the designation as GA, if that makes sense.
Yes. So what will happen is when it's GA means, okay, Kubernetes say its default DNS server is core DNS, but it is true only on the paper, as long as, in fact, there is no, Kubernetes does not deploy kubedns directly. So it is up to the tool around Kubernetes to deploy the right DNS server. So we have already updated some of these tools, so like kubeadmin, kubeup, but some other are not updated and may be updated later. Some other side effect is for GCE, let's say when you deploy Kubernetes on GCE, most likely you will have core DNS as soon as we are default. On GKE, that has no meaning. It is GKE that define the deployment. So it will happen only when GKE will move to core DNS. They expect to do it, I think, but it's not done. So the upgrade to core DNS anyway will be little by little. We are even today. I made a test yesterday. A PR with core DNS by default in kubeup. Not all the end-to-end tests are moving to core DNS in that case. Only the one that deployed to GCE. All right. So I don't know. Do you know what is the process now? We need someone to approve the.
Yes, I think so. So I think that would be Tim in this case, and so he would approve this cap, and we would agree on those set of graduation criteria, and then we'll have to start implementing those pieces of test change.
That would be who you said? Can you?
I think Tim Thaken.
Oh, Tim. Okay, yeah. Right. Okay. All right.
I have a question on
yes.
Have you guys tried core DNS with IPv6 at all, or?
Yes. So it is tested. Yes, in Kubernetes. So to test it, I had to use one tool called Docker in Docker. So that is working on my deployment Docker in Docker. I have a PR submitted since January for that, but that was never approved. I don't know exactly why, but now I need to rebase, and the Docker in Docker is not working. But yes, I did two things. checking that it is working with IPv6, and updating some of the DNS tests, because there were some of the DNS end-to-end tests were not the one dedicated for DNS were not working because I don't remember, but there's something was linked to IPv4 somehow. So that is tested, but that still need a commit, a merge. The PR is submitted since long time, but I don't know. After, I don't know, Dan, then I think the one that did the IPv6 feature, do we run today the end-to-end test with an IPv6, within an IPv6 Kubernetes?
There's there's a CI changes up for review within test infra, so it's not live yet. But the changes you made were they to the Mirantis DIN, or were they to the tests in end-to-end Kubernetes end-to-end?
Both of them. There is one on Mirantis for the Docker in Docker, and there is one on end-to-end for the DNS tests themselves, to be able to run in IPv4 or IPv6. You know, with the feature network-IPv6, something like that. Maybe
interesting to see what you have for the Docker and Docker ones, because I've been actively updating Docker and Docker for IPv6. And I'm actually pushing in another change right now so that IPv6 works in the Docker and Docker environment a little bit better. Very great, because the change I did was for enabling core DNS, because this Docker and Docker is running kubadmin. So the thing was to use the beta feature of the feature gate of kubadmin to run the core DNS. But yes, I will send you the. Yeah, it might be interesting to see what you have and see how it's. I mean, I'm not from Mirantis, but I've been working on Docker and Docker for Cisco, related to the CI test stuff that Dane is doing, so that we can get Docker and Docker working for CI. So it is the pool 57. Okay. All right, but it will need, I guess, a rebase. So that is for the Docker and Docker, and yes, the IPv6. So same thing, the IPv6. Hopefully, if you have this tool, then that is the end-to-end integration with IPv6 in Kubernetes, then I can verify my test.
All right. Thanks. Is there, so I guess the next thing to do is to chase down Tim and get approval on that, provided there are no more outstanding comments, which I don't think there were last time I checked.
I think we did an update with the last comment, and I think it's already 1 week ago. I tried to push Tim, but no.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to keep poking.
Okay.
Right.
Question. We need an approval before starting. We need an approval before merging. What is the process?
I mean, I think it's probably fine to get started on some of the work. It should be approved before it's merged. So, like, obviously, there's some risk that the graduation criteria might change, but I think it's probably. I mean, we definitely want to test this stuff, so that seems pretty low risk to me.
Yeah, Casey, I also added a comment on the KEP, but I think not just for this one, but for all graduation criteria, can we try to be more specific, as in not just saying passing all E2E tests, but can we say like passing tests for the last 10 runs, 15 runs? That way, like, it's more specific what numbers need to be hit, and it's not ambiguous as to if the actual criteria was met or not.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds good to me.
the good idea, the thing, so we are back to my initial question in that case. So we get an approval for the gate, for what is the graduation criteria, and then we merge quite early because we want to see if everything will work for everyone. And that means that at the time of the code freeze, we need to verify the graduation criteria are met, and if not, we revert this merge.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay.
So yeah, I added a comment on the KEP, and hopefully in the next couple of days we can flesh out more specifics on how we can improve the criteria.
All right.
So I think next on the agenda was Minhan, if he's on the call.
Yes, I'm here. So, a few meetings back, I presented the Pod Ready Plus proposal, and also I presented in SIG Node, and I received a lot of comments. Mostly, I like to clarify what's the scope of the proposal. Was it to solve all the transition problems, or was it like mostly for hooking up, making the workloads aware, like network or other features aware? So I addressed most of the comments, and then I opened up a CAP for the proposal. And there's two minor points where I receive a lot of comments on. One is that the Pod Ready Plus, the readiness gate, was not allowed to update after it specifies in the initial pod creation time. So it cannot be updated. Okay, that's one minor point. And the other is that I receive a lot of requests to have an additional pod condition to capture today's pod ready. Basically means that containers ready. So in order for other use cases to have a better signal. So I just want to throw these two minor points into the community and see if there's any like proposals. So and also related to the second point, where having an additional pod condition called container ready to replace the today's ready condition. Do we want to move the endpoint controller to use container ready instead of the ready plus as a signal for the endpoint readiness? So yeah. So the use case behind, like, let's say having the endpoint readiness equals to container ready instead of the ready plus gives, let's say, some use cases like I wanted to secure kubeproxy, right? I wanted to make kubeproxy to say all the programming has finished, and then I mark the pod as ready for kubeproxy, right? And that makes it possible because kubeproxy only watches endpoints, right? And then it's not scalable for all the kubeproxies to watch all the pods, right? So basically, the endpoint readiness can be a signal for kubeproxy or any load balancer that wants to start programming, and then the feature or whatever touch point on those features like kubeproxy can aggregate the programming like progress, and then say, okay, I'm done, and then feedback into this its own condition, pod condition. Yeah. So that opens up that gate. Any like suggestions or comments?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I think we might want to think a little bit about the name for the current condition. We've been saying containers ready, but I think the real distinction that here is really this ready plus is not so much about the pod, it's about the rest of the whole system.
Yes.
Being ready for traffic to flow from the clients to the pods. So the current condition is more like the pod itself is ready without worrying about the rest of the system being ready.
Yes, I consulted this with the workload team. So it's basically almost impossible to ask all the workload controllers to say, let's say we come up with another pod condition called, let's say, ready plus plus, right? To represent the pods actually ready. But to make that to take effect, it needs all the workload controllers to switch.
I wasn't going there.
Yeah.
I was not going there.
Okay.
I'm just addressing the question of, you talked about introducing a pod condition, defining a new pod condition that means what is currently pod ready, right?
Yes.
We need a plain old pod ready condition. I'm just addressing the question of what to call it. Okay. I'm saying the name of this condition should not just focus on the containers. The name should be ideally emphasize that what we're talking about is the pod, not also the rest of the system.
Okay. But like, what do you want to call it? If that's because effectively today's pod readiness means all containers are ready.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's kind of an accident. And so I was thinking more something like, pod, only pod ready, or pod itself ready, or I don't know. It's I don't have a really good name on the top of my head here, but something that emphasizes that it's only about the pod and not about the rest of the system also.
Yeah. Okay. The second part of the problem is whether to switch the endpoint readiness to this new condition.
Yeah, my concern there is there anything that's currently looking at endpoint readiness that should look at ready plus plus? And if there is, then we have to split endpoint readiness as well as split pod readiness.
Endpoint right now is a Kubernetes internal construct. It depends on whether the third party, whatever third party controllers are doing. But even though we switch to container ready, you should not interrupt their current behavior, because basically it's today's behavior. It's mostly to facilitate kubeproxy or other components that load balancer that needs a better signal, like you commented, like Mike commented on the cap. Yep.
So I understand that it's mostly for that. The concern is it entirely for that? Do we have the confidence that it's only for that?
I could not think of other use cases, like any other components or third-party controllers that depending on the endpoints object. Yeah, I could think of Istio. They probably rely on the endpoint, but for a different purpose. And then but they should not care the ready plus plus, or if the endpoints are ready plus plus or just ready.
Well, is that fair? I mean, if you imagine Istio working in combination with network policy, and network policy contributes to ready plus plus, I would imagine Istio should be willing to use an endpoint only if it's ready plus plus.
That's true. But okay, that goes back to the other part of the comments I have, right? So is this proposal aims to solve all those kind of transition problems within Kubernetes? No, right? So what you just described is one type of the transition problems in Kubernetes. So this proposal aims to seal the gap between workloads and network. Okay, that's it. And then it's not aimed to solve like all sorts of transition problems. And then, like for instance, one example I got is like, oh, how do we use this feature to do like blue-green deployment? Basically, you cannot, right? It's not aimed for having like implementing blue-green deployment with this.
Well, I think the question is, do you want to break Istio?
Istio will not be break with this proposal.
So for endpoint readiness, the proposal for endpoint readiness is to leave it at plain old ready, or not ready plus plus?
Yes, whether we want to do it or not, because that gives the kubeproxy or other load balancer like a better signal. kubeproxy sort of doesn't have a choice because it's just not scalable for kubeproxy to watch all the pods. Like, but for some random third-party controller that used to watch only endpoints, you can easily just just watch pods instead.
So, what do you think of the proposal of introducing, right? What we're doing for pod readiness is really, so we're splitting one concept of pod readiness into two. What do you think of also splitting the one concept of endpoint readiness into two? And so we'll define two concepts of endpoint readiness. One is tested as the current condition is tested today, and will reflect, let's say, ready plus plus, and the new one will be tested in a new way, and will reflect the plain old ready.
That's also fair. That probably deserves another proposal to think it through. That requires API changes because today the endpoints object, there's only one ready set and the unready set. So you're talking about like having another set called ready plus plus set or something like that. This sort of like, I feel like related to all the like topology aware routing proposals, where essentially they want to act on different sets of endpoints. Basically, the routing rules are set based on the different sets. Or we can say, okay, we can like with this proposal, we keep the definition of endpoint readiness to map to pod ready, right? And then if we have a strong use case, like other than like kubeproxy wanting to have a better signal to program endpoints, we start from there. Or we had other use cases like topology aware routing or other use cases that can basically reuse the pod ready plus plus condition, and we can proceed from there. How's that?
I think you're muted, Mike.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Actually, it's worse than that. The kubeproxy wants to consume the current endpoint readiness concept, and we hypothesized that something like Istio might want to consume. Well, it would want to consume whether the network policy part is ready, but it wouldn't want to. what to care whether the kube proxy part is ready. Would it be wrong for it to consume whether the kube proxy part is ready?
Yeah, generally speaking, I feel like endpoint, whether the endpoint or not, or like ready or not, has nothing to do with like whether the overall system is ready or not. Right? The endpoint is ready when the containers are up and then ready to serve traffic, right? And then it's just that like maybe network policy is not ready. That can be solved by other tricks, like having a label selector, having an additional label selector on the service, and then when the network policy programmer finishes, add a label to the pod label, right? Then that automatically sort of like a network policy specific pod ready plus workaround. If for just for endpoint, like whether having the endpoint show up or not.
I mean, it sounds like you're saying it's not the same problem, but it kind of is.
Could you elaborate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm saying you're saying that the problem of knowing whether the network policy has been applied to the endpoint is different from the problem of whether knowing the network policy has been applied to the pod, but it's the same kind of problem, right? And if the question is, do you want a solution that's unique to network policy, or do you want a generic solution? Right? I mean, you came in here saying we should have a generic solution, and that makes sense.
Yes. I want a generic solution for workloads to be aware of like network constructs. I don't want a generic solution to say solve all network related transition problem with all these different components, whether they are compatible or not, right?
So, and I'm just saying, think about, look, I'm also remembering Kelsey Hightower at a KubeCon few KubeCons away ago saying, look, all this kube proxy stuff, that's just training wheels. You don't have to use that, right? You can consume the endpoints directly. So I'm saying, yeah, workloads might be consuming the endpoints directly.
But few workloads are actually doing it, right? Most
but it's an advertised, recommended thing to do.
But like in reality, no workloads. Like I don't like maybe I'm ignorant, but like 99%, like or at least the core workloads, all only work with pods, right? They don't care about endpoints. They don't care about services. And then there's no way to enforce it, like force all the workloads to actually consider network constructs. With this, you are sort of forcing them to consider it. So that basically.
What I'm trying to say is, we've got an existing API. Okay, we're focused on putting a stricter readiness condition, right? Tightening up the readiness condition that's in the API, right? Because we have an unknown population of workload out there that's consuming the existing API. So I'm saying, if you want to tighten up the readiness condition, it makes sense to me to tighten up the readiness condition for both pods and endpoints, because those are both what's consumed right now by this unknown population of code out there.
Yes, you're right.
So if you want it, so it makes sense, right? The basic idea of this proposal is we're going to tighten up this thing that is consumed by an unknown population of stuff. We're going to introduce a new thing to represent the current condition that all our networking implementation will use, because we have a handle on what our networking implementation is, so we can go upgrade it. So that all I'm saying is, let's do that for both endpoints and pods.
Can we take this to the proposal, like the cap?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd like a little time to think through all the different implications as well. Okay, so I think we still have some agreement to get to on that proposal then. Minan, was there anything more you wanted to say about that, or should we just delegate the rest of it to the doc?
Yeah, I just want to raise those two minor points. Like one is don't allow update, and the other is whether we want to touch endpoint or not. I'm leaning not to, and then having an additional condition to replace the current pod ready. And then the endpoint discussion probably deserves a longer, more thorough proposal with consideration of like server topology aware routing. Or things like that. So yeah, that's my comment.
Okay, so the last thing on the agenda was just actually a question about whether there was a meeting recording available for the resource management face-to-face. It looks like Tim might have one. Seems to be the answer.
Yeah, I had read that as the follow-up meeting that we had done last Thursday, 1 hour after the working group meeting, and that's the one Tim recorded. I don't know if there are ones from the actual face-to-face earlier last week. So, but
yeah, I was mainly interested in the one you were just referring to, Dan. The basically rescheduled network plumbing one. That's the one you said Tim has?
Tim has those recordings. Yes.
Okay. Great.
So we should bug him to upload those.
All right. In that case, I think we are out of topics.
Anything on the test dashboard to talk about, Casey? I looked over it quick, and it looks like only the IPVS ones are really horribly flaky.
Good point.
Yeah, we're in the process of fixing those. Slow process, but it's going.
Okay, cool. At least there's forward progress.
Yes.
So with the IPVS test, there was a problem with the FeatureGate config. It had to be changed to a map, and so that change was made to Kubernetes Anywhere. But now we're waiting for the version of Kubernetes Anywhere to get bumped up in the version that's used in the containers, test containers. And there's a PR for that, but it's just sitting there.
Do you have any idea who needs to approve that PR?
Probably one of the test infra guys like Ben the Elder or yeah, I'm not sure who else should be doing that.
Okay.
Can you put a link to the PR in the meeting notes?
Yeah, let me see if I can find that.
Maybe we can flood ping somebody and then they'll actually take a look at it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Is anyone good at searching Git Kubernetes issues? There should be something with Kubernetes Anywhere version bump.
Is it one that you submitted?
No.
Oh, okay.
I submitted the Kubernetes Anywhere one, and that got merged, but then trying to remember who took over from there. Error developer, whoever that is, submitted the PR, the other PR for the Kubernetes Anywhere version bump. Anyway, I'll find it. I'll send it out on the mailing list.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I didn't see anything in test infra from Ilya. All right, shall we give folks 15 minutes back then? See you all next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.